The phone rings, and I know. It's a knowledge that lives in the marrow of your bones, a cold, quiet certainty that has nothing to do with thought. The screen glows with the name Mom, but it's 3:17 a.m. in London, which means it's 10:17 p.m. back home, and Mom hasn't called me this late in years. Not since the dizzy spells started, not since the world of our small town, a place I once knew every inch of, began to shrink for her to the four walls of her house, the well-worn path from her bed to her kitchen chair. I let it ring once, twice, a frantic little pulse against the polished wood of my desk, a desk that looks out over a glittering, restless city I still can't quite believe I get to call home. On the third ring, I pick up, my throat already tight with the ghost of a promise I made a lifetime ago. Ilara? It's not my mother's voice. It's Mrs. Gable, her neighbor for 40 years, her voice thin and frayed with a panic I can feel across the ocean. Honey, you need to come home. It's your mom. She took a bad fall. The ambulance is here, but she's asking for you. She's real confused, Ilara. She thinks you're still in high school. The world, my world of steel and glass and important, urgent things, tilts on its axis. The architectural model I've been painstakingly tweaking for a client meeting in 7 hours suddenly looks like what it is, a collection of childish sticks and paper. The city lights outside my window blur into a smear of gold, and for a dizzying second, I'm not Ilara Vance, award-winning architect. I'm just Ellie, my mother's daughter, and I am breaking the one promise that ever truly mattered. I promised her I would never leave. I promised her I would never abandon this town, this house, this life she built for us with her own 2 hands and a bottomless well of quiet strength. And I did. I left it all, and in doing so, I left her. The guilt is a physical weight, a stone lodged deep in my chest that I've learned to carry, to decorate, to dress in sharp suits and professional accolades. But in moments like this, it sheds all that finery and shows itself for what it is, raw, ugly, and entirely mine. I can still see her face the day I left, a bright, sharp September morning that smelled of burning leaves and endings. I was 18, my suitcase packed so full of dreams it barely latched shut. I had the acceptance letter to a university in a city so big I couldn't even picture it, a scholarship that felt like a miracle, a key to a door I'd only ever read about in books. My mother stood on the porch of our white clapboard house, her arms crossed over her chest, not in anger, but as if she were holding herself together. The house, with its sagging porch swing and the stubborn wisteria that climbed up the drainpipe, seemed to lean in around her, a silent protector. The whole town of Oakhaven was like that, a place that held you close, sometimes so close it felt like it was stealing the air from your lungs. You don't have to go, Ellie, she'd said, her voice soft but firm. There's a good life for you here. You could work at the library. You could take over the flower shop when Mrs. Higgins retires. This town, it needs young people like you. It needs your heart. I remember taking her hands, rough from a lifetime of gardening and cleaning and mending, in my own smooth, impatient ones. Mom, this is my chance. To build something. To see what's out there. She'd looked at me then, her eyes, the same shade of hazel as mine, filled with a love so profound it was almost a sadness. I know, baby. Your mind was always too big for this place. I saw the drawings you hid under your bed. Those towers, they weren't of anything in Oakhaven. She paused, and her grip tightened. Just promise me one thing. No matter how far you go, no matter what you build out there, promise me you won't abandon this place. This is your home. Your roots are here. Promise me you'll always come back. It was an easy promise to make then. It felt like poetry, not a chain. I promise, Mom. I could never really leave. This will always be my home. I kissed her cheek, the scent of her, of laundry soap and lemon verbena, imprinting itself on my memory. I got into Mr. Gable's old pickup truck. We didn't have a car that ran reliably, and I didn't look back as we drove down Maple Street, past the town square with its tired-looking gazebo, past the high school where I'd spent so many hours staring out the window, dreaming of landscapes made of concrete and light. I thought I was being brave. I had no idea that courage is sometimes found in staying, not leaving. The city was a shock to my system. It was louder, faster, and brighter than anything I could have imagined. For the first year, I was profoundly, achingly homesick. I missed the sound of crickets at night, the way the air smelled after a rain, the deep, enveloping quiet of a small town. My classmates seemed to speak a different language, one of privilege and connections and a casual confidence I had to fake. I worked 3 jobs to supplement my scholarship, my fingers growing raw from cleaning offices and waiting tables. At night, in my tiny, shared dorm room, I would draw. I drew the buildings I saw around me, but I also drew the familiar lines of my mother's house, the old oak tree in our backyard, the gentle slope of the hill outside of town. Those drawings were my anchor, my tether to the promise I'd made. My first real triumph came in my 3rd year. A design competition for a new public library in a nearby town. While my peers designed structures of cold, imposing glass, I designed a library that looked like it had grown from the earth. It had a sloping green roof, warm, reclaimed wood, and a central atrium designed to feel like the heart of a home, with a fireplace and comfortable chairs. I modeled it, unconsciously, on the feeling of the Oakhaven Library, the place where I had first fallen in love with stories, where the kind, old librarian had let me spend whole afternoons tucked away in the history section, dreaming of ancient civilizations and their grand structures. I won. The local newspaper did a story on me, "Small town girl makes good with big city design." I framed that article and sent a copy to my mother. When I called her, her voice was thick with pride. "I always knew you could do it, Ellie." I showed everyone at the diner. "They're all so proud of you." But underneath the pride, I heard the faint, unspoken question. "When are you coming home?" The success opened doors. I got a coveted internship, then a job at a prestigious firm. The pace of my life accelerated, a whirlwind of deadlines, client presentations, and construction sites. My vacations home became shorter, less frequent. A long weekend at Christmas. 4 days for Thanksgiving. I was always checking my email, always taking calls. The stone of guilt in my chest grew a little heavier each time I left, each time I saw the barely concealed disappointment in my mother's eyes as she waved goodbye from that same porch. She never once asked me to come back. Not directly. Her questions were always gentle, probing the edges of my life in the city. "Are you happy there, Ellie? It all sounds so busy." Or, "You're not working too hard, are you? You sound tired." And then she would pivot, always, to news of home. "The Johnson boy is getting married. They're going to have the reception in the town square." Or, "They're talking about closing the elementary school. Not enough children left." Each piece of news was a subtle reminder of the world I was supposed to be a part of, the life I was supposed to be living. The big break, the one that would truly cement my career and make leaving Oakhaven seem like a necessary, justified sacrifice, came 5 years ago. A massive international competition to design a new cultural arts center on the banks of the Thames. It was the kind of project architects dream of, a chance to leave a permanent mark on the skyline of a world capital. I threw myself into it with a feverish intensity. For 6 months, I barely slept. I lived on coffee and takeout, my world shrinking to the glow of my computer screen and the endless rolls of tracing paper on my desk. I didn't go home for Christmas that year. I told my mother the deadline was too tight, that this was too important. "I understand, baby," she'd said, but her voice was small, distant. "You do what you need to do. I'll be here." I sent her an extravagant gift, a cashmere sweater she would never wear to church, trying to buy my way out of the guilt. It was a pathetic, transparent effort, and we both knew it. My design for the Arts Center was, in many ways, the culmination of my entire journey. It was bold and modern, a soaring structure of glass and graceful, curving steel that reflected the river and the sky. But at its heart, I had hidden a piece of home. The main performance hall was modeled on the acoustics of the old Oakhaven Music Hall, a place where I'd seen my first ever play. The lobby featured a central courtyard with a single, massive oak tree, a direct echo of the one in my backyard. It was my secret homage, my way of keeping my promise in the only way I knew how, by weaving the soul of my hometown into the fabric of my grand, faraway success. The night before the final presentation, my mother called. She sounded weak, her voice a fragile thread. "I'm just a little under the weather, Ellie. Nothing to worry about. Don't you dare think of canceling your trip. I wanted to wish you luck. I know you're going to shine." I was so wrapped up in my own anxiety, in the monumental importance of the next day, that I let her reassurance soothe me. I told her I loved her, that I'd call her the second it was over. I pushed the nagging worry to the back of my mind, a luxury I could not afford. It was a choice, a conscious one. I chose the presentation. I chose my career. I chose the possibility of glory over the certainty of my mother's need. We won. The announcement sent my career into the stratosphere. My phone exploded with calls and emails. There were interviews, parties, a sudden, dizzying ascent into a world of fame and recognition I had never sought but found myself thrillingly addicted to. In the chaotic, champagne-soaked blur of those first 48 hours, I forgot to call my mother back. When I finally did, 2 days later, her voice was bright, effusive with a pride that felt forced. "My daughter, the famous architect." I knew it. I always knew it. That was the beginning of the long, slow goodbye. The success of the Arts Centre meant more work, bigger projects, a relocation to London to oversee the construction. My life became a passport filled with stamps, a calendar filled with obligations in cities whose names sounded like poetry. I was building my legacy, just as I'd always wanted. But with every new foundation I laid in some distant country, I felt the foundation of my promise to my mother crumble a little more. Her calls became less frequent. When we did talk, the silences between us grew longer, filled with the things we couldn't say. She stopped asking when I was coming for a visit. She started telling me not to worry, that she was fine, that Mrs. Gable was checking in on her. She became an expert in downplaying her own life, her own struggles, so as not to be a burden on mine. I, in my turn, became an expert in accepting this fiction. I sent more money, more expensive gifts, building a fortress of financial security around her, hoping it would stand in for my presence. The truth, the one Mrs. Gable had to call me at 3:17 a.m. to deliver, was that the fortress was empty. My mother was alone in it, falling, forgetting, needing me. The flight home is a 9-hour torture of recrimination and memory. I stare out the window at the endless, featureless Atlantic, and I see my life not as a series of triumphs, but as a series of abandonments. The first time I missed her birthday for a site inspection. The Thanksgiving I spent in Dubai, eating room service turkey while she ate a TV dinner alone. The slow, insidious way I had replaced the vibrant, present reality of my mother with the comfortable, distant idea of her. When I land, the world of Oakhaven feels both achingly familiar and strangely alien. The air is softer, heavier with humidity and memory. I drive a rental car down the 2-lane highway from the airport, past fields lying fallow, past barns whose paint is peeling under the relentless sun. The town, when I reach it, seems smaller, shabbier, like a photograph left fading in a window. The Welcome to Oakhaven sign is still there, but the population number has been painted over, a silent admission of decline. I pull up to the house. The wisteria is overgrown, a tangled purple mass. The porch swing hangs by one chain, the other broken. It feels like a punch to the gut. This was the place I was supposed to protect. This was the heart of the promise. Mrs. Gable meets me at the door, her face a roadmap of worry and sympathy. "She's resting," she whispers. "The doctor said it's a mild concussion, but it's the confusion that's the real worry, Alara." She's not herself. I find my mother in her bedroom, lying in the same 4-poster bed I slept in as a child. She looks small, swallowed by the pillows and quilts. Her face, always so full of gentle strength, is pale and thin. Her eyes are closed. For a terrifying moment, I am struck by the sheer fragility of her. This was the woman who worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads after my father left, who could grow a garden that fed us all summer, who could fix a leaky faucet and soothe a broken heart with equal skill. And I had left her here to face the slow creep of time alone. I sit in the chair beside her bed and take her hand. It's cool and light as a bird's bone. Her eyes flutter open. They focus on me, and for a second, there's a flash of clear, sharp recognition. Ellie? You're home. I'm home, Mom. But the clarity is fleeting. Her brow furrows. Did you finish your history homework? Mr. Henderson will give you detention again if you don't turn it in. She thinks I'm 16. She's back in a time when I was still hers, when my world was still contained within the borders of this town. The days that follow are a crash course in a new, heartbreaking reality. I learn about medications and doctor's appointments. I meet with a kind, overworked social worker who talks about cognitive decline and long-term care options. I clean the house from top to bottom, finding evidence of my mother's slow surrender to her failing memory, unopened bills, expired food in the pantry, a calendar from 2 years ago still hanging on the kitchen wall. I also find traces of my own life, carefully preserved. A scrapbook filled with every article ever written about me. Printouts of my firm's website, my bio circled in pen. A shoebox full of the postcards I sent from my travels, each one with a brief, breezy message about how beautiful Paris was, how exciting Tokyo was. They were boasts, not conversations. I had been sending her proof of my life without her, and she had been treasuring it. The climax of this personal nightmare comes a week later. I am in the kitchen, trying to decipher a casserole recipe one of the church ladies dropped off, when my phone buzzes. It's a video call from my business partner, Marcus, in London. His face is a mask of controlled excitement. Ilara. Thank God you picked up. Are you sitting down? The shortlist for the Pritzker, they've released it. You're on it. You're actually on it. The Pritzker Prize. It's the Nobel of Architecture, the highest accolade anyone in my field can ever achieve. It's the kind of thing I used to whisper to myself in the dark, a secret, impossible dream. And now, my name is on the shortlist. Marcus is talking a mile a minute about press strategy, about the gala ceremony in Venice in 2 months, about what this will mean for the firm. I should be ecstatic. I should be screaming, crying, dancing around this familiar, shabby kitchen. This is the validation of every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every missed holiday. This is the moment I have been working for since I first put a pencil to a piece of paper and dreamed of a building that could touch the sky. But my eyes are fixed on the doorway to the living room. My mother is standing there, leaning heavily on her walker. She's wearing the robe I bought her for her last birthday, a silky, impractical thing that is now stained with tea. Her hair is a soft, white cloud around her head. She's looking at me, but her eyes are cloudy, confused. Ellie, she says, her voice quavering. Who are you talking to? Is everything all right? And in that moment, the two halves of my life, the triumphant architect and the guilty daughter, collide with a force that steals my breath. The glittering prize, the ultimate symbol of my success, is being offered to me at the exact moment my mother, the reason for my promise, needs me to simply be her daughter. To stay. Ilara? Are you there? Marcus's voice is tinny from the phone. This is it. This is everything. I look from the screen, from his eager, ambitious face, to my mother's lost, frightened one. The choice is no longer abstract. It is here, in this room, smelling of lemon polish and old wood and the faint, sweet scent of my mother's perfume. I can have the legacy the world recognizes, or I can honor the legacy she gave me, a home, a promise, a root system. Marcus, I say, my voice surprisingly steady. I have to call you back. I hang up before he can respond. I walk over to my mother and take her hand. It's trembling. It's all right, Mom, I say, leading her gently to her favorite armchair by the window. It was just work. Nothing important. I make her a cup of tea, the way she likes it, with a spoonful of honey and a splash of milk. I sit with her as she drinks it, telling her about the robins building a nest in the oak tree outside, about how Mrs. Gable's tomato plants are coming along. It's small talk, the currency of a shared, present life. And as I watch the anxiety slowly leave her face, replaced by a simple, quiet contentment, I feel the stone of guilt in my chest begin, for the first time, to soften. It doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes not just a weight of regret, but a foundation for something new. I don't go to Venice for the Pritzker ceremony. I send my regrets. I tell them a family emergency prevents me from attending. Someone else wins, and I read about it online while sitting at my mother's kitchen table, eating a piece of her apple pie. There is a pang, of course there is. A ghost of that ambitious girl I was feels a sting of what might have been. But it is a distant, faded thing, like a photograph from another life. The real climax, the one that matters, happens a few months later, on a bright, clear morning. My mother is having a good day. She's lucid, her memory sharp. We are sitting on the porch swing is fixed now, I fixed it, and she turns to me. "You stayed, Ellie," she says, her voice clear and strong. "I never thought you would, but you did." It's the first time she has acknowledged my presence here as anything other than a temporary visit. It's the first time she has spoken of my leaving not with sadness, but with a sense of surprise that it didn't happen. "I made you a promise, Mom." She smiles, a real, genuine smile that reaches her eyes and makes her look young again. "I know you did, baby. But a promise like that, it's a heavy thing to put on a young person's shoulders. I was wrong to ask it of you. I was so scared of being left behind." Tears fill my eyes, blurring the familiar view of Maple Street. "I'm so sorry I left you. I'm so sorry I wasn't here." She reaches over and pats my hand, her touch as gentle as it ever was. "You weren't meant for this little town, Ellie. You had to go. You had to build your beautiful buildings. I got to see them, you know. In the magazines. I would look at them and think, my daughter made that. And all that pride, it was bigger than the loneliness. It really was." In that moment, the final brick of the fortress of my guilt crumbles to dust. Her absolution is a gift I didn't know how desperately I needed. She had never felt abandoned. She had felt proud. My success wasn't a betrayal of my promise, it was the fulfillment of a different, unspoken one, the promise to make something of the gift she had nurtured in me. I didn't abandon my hometown. I carry it with me. I see that now. It's in the curve of a roofline, the warmth of the materials I choose, the heart I try to build into every structure. Oakhaven isn't a place on a map I failed to protect, it's the moral compass I built my life upon, even when I thought I was wandering far from it. My legacy isn't the Pritzker Prize I didn't win. It's the porch swing I fixed. It's the cup of tea I make for my mother every morning. It's the quiet understanding that the most important structures we will ever build are not made of steel and glass, but of time and presence and love. Success didn't force me to leave her behind. It led me on a long, winding journey to finally understand that the greatest success of all was the one waiting for me right here, all along. So, I sit here on this porch, in the town I promised never to abandon, holding my mother's hand. The world may see a woman who gave up a shot at glory for a quiet life. But I know the truth. I finally came home, not because a promise forced me, but because my heart, weathered and wiser, finally led me back. And my mother, in her infinite wisdom, once told me something I'm only now beginning to understand. She said, "Ellie, a tree can grow 1,000 miles tall, but it only means something if its roots run deep." And mine, I've discovered, run all the way back here.